What's up, guys? Welcome into another episode of the Wolverine Live Recruiting Show. I'm your host, EJ Holland. Alongside me is my co-host, Zach Libby. And yeah, we've been gone for a minute, Zach. We've had a couple of premieres that we've scheduled on the YouTube show, but most of May, we were out of pocket. I was traveling across the country. Zach did some travels as well, and also had a week-long bachelor's party in Arizona. So yeah, we've kind of been out of pocket, but we're back in-house. We're going to hunker down because it is the start of official visit season. So spring evaluation period is over. That means coaches are no longer on the road with the exception of a few satellite camps. They're going to be on campus having their own camps, as well as having official visitors on campus. And with only 5 commits in the class right now, official visit season is absolutely pivotal. Zach, how excited are you for OVCs?
It's one of the more exciting parts of the calendar year. And I think we've talked about this before. I think this is a prime opportunity for Michigan to add more numbers in this class. And that's what everyone's vying for as fans. So looking forward to seeing what comes out these next 4 weeks.
Definitely. We are getting people to funnel in right now. So for those of you that don't subscribe to the Wolverine.com, make sure to subscribe today. Special offer for our YouTube members. Use the promo code UM1. That's $1 for 2 months over at the Wolverine.com using the promo code UM1. You're definitely going to want to sign up using that code. Like I said, official visits about to start this weekend, so don't miss any recruiting juice. And also like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for free. We are going to drop the shows consistently again, and we're always posting new videos and things of that nature. So make sure to like this video and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. By the way, John Hayes Schultz asked, did anyone else see Furiosa this past weekend? It was fantastic in IMAX. I actually was going to go yesterday, and then we ran into a couple of bumps in the road. So we're going to go see it this week. I had never seen Mad Max before. It's always been one of those movies, Fury Road. It's always been one of those movies that I've wanted to see and never just put it on for some reason. So I finally watched it the other day since we were going to go watch this movie. And it was great. Zach, have you seen Mad Max?
I've seen the original.
The 80s version?
Like Mel Gibson, 1981 or something. It's all right. I mean,
not Fury Road.
No, not the new one.
I would give the Fury Road one a shot, and then maybe you can go to the dine-in theater and actually, get the full experience since, you've never had food in a movie. So let's go ahead and get into Michigan. Recruiting, obviously, first official visit weekend of the season is this Friday. Michigan bringing in 4 official visitors, a handful of top 100 recruits coming in. So a small group, but an important recruiting weekend here. Let's go ahead and start off. We're going to go one by one, talking about each prospect. So we're going to bounce from Zach to me. So Zach, I'll give you one of your guys that you've been covering closely, and that is Douglas Utu, offensive lineman out of Powerhouse, Las Vegas. Bishop Gorman, you were just down in Vegas not too long ago to see him. Michigan actually has the On3 recruiting prediction machine lead for Utu right now. The national analysts don't seem too high on UM's chances, but those on the Michigan side are optimistic. The RPM's optimistic. What say you, Zach?
I would say Michigan has a really good shot in just closing this one out with a really good official visit weekend. And I think it's obvious, and when you're looking at an offensive lineman and what Michigan can provide for players at that position as prospects. I mean, you have your head coach, who was a former offensive lineman at the collegiate level, coached Michigan to 2 Joe Moore awards as an offensive line coach. And then not only that, his replacement in Grant Newsome also played offensive line at Michigan. So with those 2, they're obviously leading the way for Utu. And, when I talked to him earlier this month, the relationship with both is great. The one with Moore is obviously a little bit longer. It's transpired over the past 2 years when Moore first offered Utu before his sophomore season. And then obviously with Newsome, being promoted or moving from tight ends coach in the winter, that's when communication really picked up between him and Utu. And then, getting an opportunity to see a glimpse of Ann Arbor, being there for spring camp practice in late March on a weekend in which Michigan brought in a number of offensive line targets. So it was really, gravitated towards that position. Again, to have individual meetings with the coaches, get to see the offensive line play in action in a practice setting, and then just getting towards the facilities, just getting that kind of comfort around Ann Arbor was big. And ultimately that led to him and the family wanting to get a second look on this official visit. And, there's obviously peer recruiting too. Michigan's bringing in 2 of his offensive line teammates at Bishop Gorman for official visits, and Kalaya Balu and SJ Alafatuli, and then a former Bishop Gorman teammate last season and Micah Kapana is already there on campus. So that will be great, for them to reunite. I'm sure Micah will continue making pure pitches. And then not only that, we'll, when we move on to the next target who's coming in this weekend, that's another teammate that Utu will have on campus. So there's familiarity, obviously, with Michigan. And then the operation that Bishop Gorman kind of deploys, which has led to a national championship at the high school level by Max Preps. I mean, there's a lot of commonality between that and what Michigan has instilled, which has led to 3 straight Big Ten titles and a national championship. So development is really made Utu and his family be interested in Michigan. That relationship factor is important. We'll see how which teams continue to push for him and which schools end up being final contenders. He's just come off a official visit to Washington. He has an Alabama official visit coming up, and then Ohio State and Nebraska and others are really pushing. So ultimately, I think we'll get a clear sense of where Michigan stands and how he's feeling confident wise in terms of enrolling in Ann Arbor or potentially doing so following this official visit.
Definitely. So before we move on to the next recruit, I see more people filing in and a few questions in the chat. Remember, tomorrow is the Q&A show. If you want a question answered on tonight's show, make sure to hit that little dollar symbol. That money goes directly to our travel budget so we can continue to see recruits across the country. I was just in Florida seeing Carter Smith and Elijah Melendez. Zach is on his way back from Kentucky. So yeah, we're traveling a ton, or we were traveling a ton here during the spring evaluation period. And that's thanks in large part to you guys. So if you want to continue to fund our travel, make sure to hit that little dollar symbol and get your question answered on tonight's show. Again, that is a super chat. And if you want to leave the OT question of the day, you can definitely do that, and we'll answer it at the end of this show. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on. Let's stay out west and go over to the defensive side of the ball. Michigan bringing in on 300 edge Marco Jones out of California. Now, Marco Jones isn't a prospect that Michigan fans are super familiar with, or I see Michigan fans talking a lot about. But Marco Jones is a guy that you all should be really, really excited about. Michigan is in that top group. You see the RPM has Oregon, Texas, Alabama, and Michigan in it. Those are pretty much the group of schools with a few others also involved. But the reason I say Michigan fans should be really excited about Marco Jones is turn on the tape, man. He is an absolute monster. He plays middle linebacker for his high school, and he dominates at that position. Michigan recruiting him as more of a pass rusher. On tape at the high school level, he has tremendous sideline to sideline speed. He's a playmaker. He has a nose for the football. He's extremely physical, but you see the speed, you see the length, you see the ability to come off the edge at the next level. Now, Jones is listed at 6'4", 215 pounds. I believed he weighed in 30 pounds heavier the last time he was at Michigan, which was just a few months ago for a spring visit. So he's a really impressive athlete. On top of that, he's a really good baseball player. If you follow the show, you know that I'm a big fan of guys that can do both of those sports. The skill set translates really well, and just, you know, simple things like discipline and hand-eye coordination. And so Marco Jones brings a ton of that. He has great bloodlines as well. His father AJ played for Colorado. So, you know, as a prospect, I think Marco Jones is extremely exciting. He actually might be and this is a really good group, but he actually might be my favorite prospect coming in this weekend. Now, where does Michigan stand? They definitely have some work to do. I think the spring visit really opened Marco's eyes and his family's eyes. You know, I spoke to his father, AJ, after their spring visit, and he had nothing but great things to say about the program, both on and off the field. Marco is a very high academic student. In fact, at one point early in the process, it seemed like Notre Dame had the lead for him, and then they kind of tapered off a little bit. So, you know, he does value the academic side, but when you have Alabama, Texas, Oregon, those are some heavy hitters when it comes to the NIL aspect. So it'll be interesting to see if that becomes a factor at all in the Jones recruitment. If NIL isn't a factor, then I think Michigan is a sneaky good player here, just because of those high academics, the development at his position as well. When you think about pass rushers, you think about Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabo, Mike Morris. Michigan has done extremely well developing pass rushers and having them go on to the next level. Even here recently in this draft, Jalen Harrell, you know, comes to mind, obviously, Braden McGregor. So, you know, you have a lot of guys that you can sell. So from a development standpoint, an education standpoint, and just a scheme standpoint as well, you also think about pass rushers when you think about, you know, the Baltimore Ravens and Wink Martindale and what his scheme was like in the NFL back in the day. So, you know, I feel like, you know, Michigan checks a lot of boxes for Marco Jones and the family. I'm just, you know, anytime you see Oregon with the lead on that on-3 RPM, it's tough to get super excited, especially for a prospect that's already out west. But again, I really like Marco Jones as a recruit. And, you know, as Michigan fans, you guys should definitely hope for a really strong visit, because he would be a fantastic addition. And I think he has the ceiling to be that next great Michigan edge. Shout out to JJ Frey, who says that he's been following Michigan recruiting for 7 years. And he says that we're the best. We keep it real on our eval. So shout out to you, JJ Frey. Let's go ahead and move back over to the offensive side of the ball. Now, Zach, you talked about Douglas Utu already. He is not the only Gorman recruit coming in. Top 100 wide receiver Derek Meadows, who's a borderline 5-star recruit, also making it in. Now, what's interesting is when you went to visit Meadows a few weeks ago in Las Vegas, he hadn't set up an official visit to Michigan yet. In fact, it looked like Michigan wasn't going to get an OV. They had him on campus for the spring game, and we kind of reported there was a lot of work left to do. But Ron Bellamy and company have done a really nice job here. They secured him for an official visit this weekend. So are you feeling a little bit more optimistic about Michigan's chances, despite the RPM having Notre Dame heavily in the lead there?
I mean, there's still obviously work to do. When you look at it, the other official visits with Notre Dame and Alabama and LSU, Michigan really has to hit a home run here this weekend to really solidify its standing, or even vault up the list. There's obviously the next step following that spring visit was to get that official visit locked in. Now it's just hammering home the fact that, you know, you look at a kid like Derek Meadows, who's a legit 6'5", 185 pounds. You know, to be that go-to outside threat wide receiver that Michigan is vying for this cycle. I mean, guys like Derek Meadows and Quincy Porter fit that mold in terms of just having that dynamic weapon on the outside as your X. Derek, you know, he's obviously familiar with Michigan. He has family currently living in the Detroit area. His dad's side of the family, I believe, is originally from the city. He's grown up in the Midwest. He grew up in Chicagoland, played alongside the likes of Tyler Morris and Amarion Stewart. He has the connection with Micah Kapanov, with Gorman. But, that spring visit really kind of opened his eyes in terms of just, an opportunity to, if development goes properly, if he ends up there, he can get significant playing time as I mentioned, that outside threat. When I watched him in practice, that was the second time I've seen him, but, it was a full padded practice in the 99-degree Las Vegas heat when they were doing 7-on-7s. I was wowed by just the catch radius, the way Derek sinks his hips, the way he changes directions, the way he's able to grab 50-50 balls and just be on those go routes. I mean, the way he can jump up and get the ball. I've seen a lot of wide receivers, these past 2 years doing this career, but there's few that kind of stand out, and Derek is one of them. He just as impressive as I saw him as compared to like someone like Mylan Graham, who I was high on for Michigan to get and hoping that they were able to get an official visit with him. I think Derek is that good and that big of a difference maker at the next level. As you mentioned, Ron Bellamy is working effortlessly to make sure that Michigan stays in this race, has vaulted into this race. I think it's just a matter of, as I mentioned, I guess hitting home the key points, and that's, as I mentioned, significant playing time early and being that guy on the outside for a Michigan offense, as it tries to, or is it working towards becoming more balanced. So I think this is one recruitment that I'm intrigued to follow, and I guess how it kind of transpires the rest of the month.
Oops, I was on mute there. And John Stacy says, supposedly one more visitor this weekend. If true, I'm sure you all will break the news. Yeah, actually just got a text right now, John. So shout out to you for being on top of that. DJ Sanders will be coming on for a visit. I think we initially had him as a maybe for Victor's weekend, and now he will be coming in for an OV on this weekend, so May 31st. So a fifth visitor added. Let's talk about DJ Sanders. He is a top 100 defensive lineman out of Texas. I mean, this man's a little bit like a ghost, not a lot of information on him just because he doesn't do many interviews. He's not a guy that's out on social media or anything. Michigan hosted him for a spring visit. He has family in the Detroit area. That definitely is a reason why Michigan's interest he has interest in Michigan. New defensive line coach Lou Esposito has already built a relationship with him. Area recruiter JB Brown has built a relationship with him as well. So, yeah, I think Michigan is probably running third in this race behind Texas A&M and Texas. Belleville, Texas, being a Texas native, is a really small town right outside of Houston, and it is very Texas A&M heavy, like a lot of Aggie influence in that particular part of the state. So I'm not too optimistic here. I mean, Michigan will obviously have a chance to make a power move in this recruitment on his OV, but I think that right now I would definitely give the advantage to the Texas schools. I would have liked it if Michigan would have gotten him in for the Victors weekend as official visits to Texas and Texas A&M definitely loom large. Let's talk about our last official visitor, and that is Koa Winston out of Washington, D.C., Gonzaga Prep. Now, Koa is quickly becoming one of my favorite recruits in this class. I always like recruits that break the mold that I don't necessarily love in terms of an evaluation perspective. I don't really like recruits that are built like Winston. He's probably a tad under 5'10", but man, he is such a dynamic playmaker on the back end. He's like the anomaly. Like I said, I normally don't love guys that are built like Winston, but he breaks that mold because he's just so damn good. He's a really, really good football player. When you're talking about Koa Winston, you're talking about a guy that can play the nickel. He can be a deep safety if you want him to. He can come into the box as well. Even though he's on the shorter side, he has a really thick build. He's extremely physical. You turn on the tape and man, he's just smacking people out there. The closing speed is absolutely tremendous. And IQ, just he's a smart kid in the classroom, high academic kid. And it turns over to the football field where he's just very instinctual. He knows what the offense is trying to do. He can be a commander on that back end. I really like him as a nickel type in Michigan's scheme, which is more so what they've been pitching him as well. But like I said, he has the flexibility to move around in the secondary, move around in the defense. He's just kind of a little pit bull, man. He's just a guy that makes plays back there. He knows how to create turnovers, and he plays really good competition as well. When you talk about Gonzaga, you're talking about one of the best teams in the DMV. They consistently play the, DeMathas of the world and good counsels. And so when you look at his tape, he's playing quality high school football competition. Now, in terms of his recruitment, Michigan has gained a little bit of steam here recently. He's built a really good relationship with Lamar Morgan, who was in DC to visit him last week. Wink Martindale's also been involved in that recruitment. And like I said, I think Michigan's built a little bit of momentum here. It sucks to get the first visit, but I think Michigan has a true chance here. I do think there's reason for optimism. These are the four schools you see on the screen for the RPM are the four schools that are pretty much the finalists for Winston. Penn State has the lead here, more so because he's been there a lot. He has a cousin, KJ Winston, who is a really good player for the Nittany Lions. So that's definitely a factor there. So I would say Penn State has the edge just because of familiarity, but getting him back on campus for his second visit of the calendar year, I think will pay huge dividends. I think Winston fits the profile of a Michigan kid, just really high character kid, high academic kid, all about his business and playing football. Remember, Michigan went into Gonzaga and landed Evan Link last year, or I'm sorry, 2 years ago. And so, they're able to, Gonzaga is a school that just produces those types of kids that I think Michigan would be appealing to. And it certainly has been for Winston. And I remember when I first talked to Winston, really early in the offseason, before Lamar Morgan was hired, he still had interest in Michigan despite all of the changes and everything. He was just really fond of the program and the school and what it had to offer on and off the field. So again, I think there is real reason for optimism here. Oregon obviously offers a lot on the NIL side, but I just don't get the sense that that's going to move the needle too much with Winston. It doesn't seem like NIL is going to be a huge factor. North Carolina is a school that's hosted him on multiple occasions, but I really do think this is more of a Michigan-Penn State battle. Again, it sucks that Penn State is getting him in after Michigan, but I do think that Michigan has a true chance here. When I did my mock class yesterday, I had Winston in there. I feel like Michigan can beat out Penn State in this recruitment. And that's a good point, John Stacy, too, is Penn State did lead for Evan Link for a while before Michigan built some momentum during his summer commitment. I believe Link committed to Michigan at the barbecue in July during his recruitment after Penn State led for a while. So maybe it follows a similar path here with Koa Winston, but just really good football player, really good kid. I'd love to see him land at Michigan just because I think it's a perfect match for him. So those are our official visitors. So that is the lowdown. We'll have much more on the official visitors heading into the weekend over at the Wolverine.com. Make sure to use that promo code UM1. Get 2 months for $1 right now using the promo code UM1. one. All right, Zach. So let's do a quick question here. Over, under. Let's set the number. Let's go with, so Michigan has 5 commits right now, right? So by July 15th, that gives you the entire month of June for official visits, plus a few weeks after for kids to set decisions. For example, Jadon Blair is committing July 5th, and Michael Carroll is looking to commit July 4th. So some of these kids want to commit in the weeks after their OVs as well. So by July 15th, will Michigan add more than 8 commitments, bringing them up to 13 by July 15th?
That sounds like a reasonable goal, but I don't see it.
You're going under 8.
Under. I'm going under. If
Why?
we're gonna base, let's look at the On3 recruiting prediction machine first, because currently on the ones who are scheduled to officially visit next month, 8 non-commits have Michigan's leading 4. Of that 8, 2, 3 that you can feel confident right now. I think it's too early to really kind of hone in like this guy could end up in the class, this guy isn't, but I think under 13 seems reasonable, and then you wait till the fall, because there's quite a handful of top targets that Michigan has this cycle that are planning to wait until their senior years, which is fine. I don't think if you're under 13, I don't think that's an issue. If you get the guys that you are expected to land and the ones that want to end up in the class early to help peer recruit, I don't think it's an issue. I think it's just maybe a little too high right now, especially at this period.
All right, before I give my answer, guys, let us know in the chat box, would you bet over or under 8? Would you not bet at all? Let us know. Also, if anyone wants to get in an OT question of the day, make sure to leave that comment. Last call for super chats. If you want a question answered on tonight's show, make sure to hit that little dollar symbol and also like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for free. I set it at 8, and I feel like it's a pretty decent line. Like in the chat box, our first few comments, John Stacy says push or over. Borge Warner goes with 9, so barely over. John Schultz goes with under. Sean Paul goes with over. Yeah, I think 8 is a decent line. I would probably, I'm a betting man, Zach, and I don't feel like I would bet on this one because, like you said, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's only a handful of targets that right now I would feel really, really good about, and maybe not even a handful, maybe just a couple that I would feel really good about, and a handful that I feel like would lean Michigan's way. It seems like a lot of kids Michigan's recruiting do want to wait a little while. You do have some guys that have said they want to take it to the fall, and Michigan's working on guys that are top targets that are committed elsewhere as well. Like Elijah Melendez is committed to Miami, or Shamari Earls is committed to South Carolina. And then you have guys that have flat out stated they're going to wait until the fall, like Jordan Young. So, there are guys that have said they're going to wait until the fall. So I can see Michigan landing 8 or a little under, but maybe they catch fire. Last cycle, Michigan started off super hot and then they went cold. This cycle, they've started out cold, and maybe they can get super hot. Like I do feel good about Hardy Watts. Like let's say Hardy Watts commits, right? You already have Avery Gash committed. there's limited offensive line spots. So what if, one or two other offensive linemen see that there's only one offensive line spot and they jump on? I could easily see one of the running backs taking a running back spot. You have 3 running backs coming in so far. And I think Donovan Johnson's going to wait until the fall. But I could see a guy like Jasper Parker just jumping in and filling that running back spot. What if, right now the receivers, right? What if they decide to take a guy that's under the radar like Preston Bowman, and all of a sudden you have just one more room for a slot guy, and that pushes Taz Williams or John Anthony Hall to commit. So I think what I'm trying to say here is, if Michigan's able to get a few commits at positions that have limited numbers, it could cause a snowball effect of people locking up their spot, so you can see it potentially go over. But the fact that we're having a debate and making cases for over under, I think 8's a really good expectation number right now. So that again would bring them to a total of 13. I'm not sure they take a full 25 this cycle. It'll be interesting, with all the transition and the additions that came through the portal and things of that nature. But I think 13 heading into July 15th would be good. Maybe you get a few more in August and really hone in on those final 7, 8 targets left for the fall. Zach, any additional commentary on the over under?
I mean, that's a likely scenario where one kid commits and then the domino effect starts. Then you kind of want to hit the over. But I think my main point was just, if it's under 13, I wouldn't, if you're a fan, I wouldn't probably be concerned, considering, as you mentioned, there's a lot of kids who are staying patient. Like, they haven't locked in that date yet. So I probably wouldn't sweat it if I was a fan.
All right, guys, that's going to be our show tonight. Again, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I will be back tomorrow for our Q&A show to answer all of your questions. So tune in then.